Today I'm going to talk about giving 100%, going all in, fully committing to something, having no backup plan, and really going to dive into it and pull it apart and not just give some sort of simple advice that you always hear. Do your best, give 100%, etc., etc. Burn the boats, right? There's the story of the Spanish conquistador, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. That was when they would arrive at a new land to conquer, he'd have his men, his soldiers, burn the boats so they couldn't return home. They had to stay there and conquer the place or die, succeed or die. And that's something that you hear a lot, people giving that advice to burn the boats, so to speak, and have no way back. So you have to succeed at whatever you're doing. So you quit your job and start your own business, or you don't give yourself another option in case the business or the job or the project you're pursuing, in case it doesn't work, you have no other options. You have to make it work. And there's some, obviously, utility to that advice. It has worked for a number of people. I think that it can often force people to stay in something too long that they actually realize they don't want to do. In other words, they are into something, they burn the boats, they quit their job or whatever the case may be, and then they realize once they're really doing that thing full on that they don't want to do it anymore, but because they burn the boats, they have to. So that's the danger of burning the boats, to me, is less about what if you fail, but more about what if you actually decide that's not the right thing for you, right? You don't really know whether you really want to do something long term until you start doing it. No matter how appealing it seems, no matter how fun or engaging or compelling or fulfilling it is when you do it kind of part-time, right, on the side, that's totally different than when you're doing it full on, full force, for real, right? And so it's totally different. So you don't really know what that's going to be like till you do it, right? You might love creating little videos for your social media or little movies, or maybe you like drawing, painting, doing some kind of digital art, etc., as a side thing, as a thing for fun. And then you're like, I could really do that full time. I see a lot of people making a living doing some sort of online content, or if you're an artist, some kind of design work, etc., or just straight up selling art. And you then are like, so let me go full throttle on this because I love doing it for fun on the side. But then once you go full throttle and you realize how much you have to do of it and how much you have to tailor it to making money, you have to, if it's a thing that needs to make money, you're going to have to take into account a lot of factors, obviously, the audience, the market, what people will pay for, essentially. And once you start doing that, so you have to compromise what you're doing a little bit. You have to fit it into what's going to make money. And then also you're doing it much more for a run for 5 minutes and then go for a run for 5 hours and tell me if there's a difference. When you have to do something a lot more, it changes it. It's not the same thing. Anything. Once you're doing it for much longer, and also you got to tailor it and sell it. Ultimately, whatever you do, you got to sell it. So then the whole sales, marketing comes into play. No matter what you're doing, you have to sell something, right? If you're going to make money. Then you got to add the marketing, the sales, then you obviously have to deal with all the other business stuff, accounting, etc., taxes, all that. And so all of a sudden, it's not just the fun thing you used to do on the side, right? Now it's a much bigger operation. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot more work. And there's a lot more other kinds of work besides doing the thing that you loved. And so once you get into that, you might realize, oh, I actually just love doing this as a side thing, as a hobby, as a fun, even more than a hobby, as a calling, as a craft. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to minimize it just because it's not making money. It can be something on the side that is really that you're really passionate about and really means a lot to you and you devote, your time to it. But nevertheless, once you go in full time on it, full throttle, and then you realize, oh, I don't really want to do this full as a business. I actually just want to do the thing as a hobby, as a side pursuit, or as a non-money making pursuit. Then you can do that. But if you burned all the boats, it might be harder to just go back. You see what I'm saying? I do think that there is some validity to burning the boats. For some people that can work, and it is good to go give 100%, which is what I'm going to get into now in the video here, is talking a little bit more about what it means to go all in, give 100% without burning the boats, because I really don't think in most cases that's the right move. Of course, there's many exceptions. And you do what works for you, of course. So if that really works for you, that's going to motivate you and help you, go for it. I just think that's not really the only way to motivate yourself to go all in. It's not the only way to go all in and give 100%. And like I was saying, it makes it much harder to go back. And even if you can logistically go back, meaning, let's say you quit your job and your boss come back anytime. So you burn the boat, but it didn't really burn because you could go back. But now you have the pride that kicks in, the ego. And it's like, now it's much harder to go back. Once you burn the boats, even if it technically, logistically, you can go back, it's much harder emotionally, because now you got the pride, and to like kind of put your hat in your hand and tuck your tail between your legs, or whatever the right saying is in this case. It's much harder to go back and say, hey, can I have my job back, or whatever the thing is where you have to go back to where you were and unburn the boat. And pride it's going to be hard to do that emotionally. And then you feel like, I burned the boat, so I got to keep doing this thing, even though I actually don't like it as a full-time pursuit, but I burned the boat, so I got to keep going. And then you're doing something that is not working for you, and you're like, you grow to resent the thing that you used to love. This happens all the time. I've seen this personally, where people, the thing they love, and then they go full time, and then they start to resent it because they don't actually like it. They have to do it because they feel like they committed, they burn the boats and all that. And so this is a dangerous game, is what I'm saying. And so let me give a personal example, because I realize I'm just saying I've seen people do this. Happens. I'm speaking abstractly and hypothetically, and let me give personal examples just to bring this into some real life situations. So I was a screenwriter and director in the film industry in Hollywood, Los Angeles, and I loved movies as a kid. I used to go to the movies. I loved movies. We actually didn't have a TV in my house till I was 12 or 13. So like for the first 12 or so years of my life, we had no TV. So basically I could only either watch something at a friend's house or at the movie theater. And even though my parents didn't want a TV in the house, they were cool to take me to the movies a lot. So I did go to the movies a lot. And so because having no TV, the movies were much more of a special experience than I think for people that maybe were watching TV every day or in their house. So for me, going to the movie theater was, such a treat. And so I just fell in love with the movies. And it didn't really connect for me until after college, really, or during college, actually, that I could work in the movies. I don't know why throughout high school and whatnot, it didn't even occur to me. I hear of these stories of kids like Steven Spielberg and a bunch of other filmmakers that like started making movies when they were 12 or something with the home camera, and they always knew they wanted to be it. For me, I didn't, even though I loved movies as a kid, I didn't quite realize until I was 20 or so. And anyway, point being is going to work in the film industry, and over the years, as I had to tailor my writing to what they wanted to make, in other words, what could sell, what the studios and other producers wanted to make, and so what could sell. It wasn't just me using my imagination and coming up with the movie that I wanted to see. I started to try to tailor to something that would get sold. And then if it didn't sell, then I would get even like more pissed, basically, because I didn't even, the thing I wanted to write, like I was like doing it for them and they didn't even want to buy it. And so then I was like, why the hell am I do this? Why'd I spend like all those hours to write a screenplay and going through multiple drafts? A screenplay is, for a movie, is anywhere from probably 100, 120 pages, depending. And write all that takes hundreds of hours at least, and put all my energy into that. And then it wasn't even exactly what I wanted to write, and then it didn't even sell. So what was the point? And so going through that process over and over, I started to resent the whole thing and be like, this kind of sucks. Because it did suck. That whole process sucked. And a lot of things would happen, like scripts would get to a certain point, get certain actors or producers attached, and seem like they were going to go somewhere and then not. So like my hopes would get up, get dashed. Anyway, point is that I started to resent the whole thing, not like it, but felt like I couldn't quit. I didn't want to quit. I think that's part of my nature, is like I don't quit. I could look back my whole life at all these instances and like where I didn't quit, and a lot in sports, of course, but also other stuff. And so I didn't want to quit, but I also felt like I couldn't, because I'd committed to it and I'd burned the boats. I never had another backup career going, like some other job, not just job, but career-oriented job that I could do another career. So I never had, so I did burn the boats, essentially. I had no plan B. And so I felt I was stuck in that. I had to keep doing what I was doing. I had to keep pursuing screenwriting, directing, because I burned the boats. There was no plan B. And so this is what the whole thing I was saying in this video is my personal experience with this was going to Hollywood, pursuing screenwriting and directing, burning the boats, having no backup career. And so then I had to stay there, and then not really liking the whole thing, and grew a lot of resentment around it. And then what I did was, I was like, okay, this isn't working, so let me make an independent movie, right, outside the studio system, that I can write the movie I want to write and direct it the way I want to direct it, and cast it the way I want to cast it, and then I'm really making the movie that I want to make. So I did that, made an independent movie that I wrote and directed, and got into film festivals, won some Best Comedy Movies, a couple of film festivals, was released on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And so that, in retrospect, I can see now, okay, that was a good pivot, essentially. But it didn't really feel like one at the time. In other words, at the time, I was still hoping that it would get me into the Hollywood film industry, like that a lot of filmmakers make an independent movie, and then the Hollywood studios see it, and they then give them a job writing or directing a studio movie. And so I was hoping for that to happen. And so I was still in this track, essentially, and focused on Hollywood. And so it actually wasn't till that movie came out in 2019, the independent movie I mentioned that I made. And then in 2020, COVID happened, whole industry shut down. And so it wasn't until really after that shutdown, and so over the course of the pandemic, that I really decided to try to unburn the boats, essentially. Or not even unburn the boats, but find a new path. I then was letting go. I spent the last couple years, now it's been 4 years since the pandemic, but spent the next few years letting go, even till now, really, letting go of this Hollywood dream and getting off that track that I had burned the boats, getting off that land to conquer by by unburning the boats. And so the point, I guess, to wrap this up is when you want to pursue something, a career, a project, art, whatever the case may be, do go all in, give it 100%, right? You're not gonna know whether you can do it or what, and whether it can succeed unless you give it 100%. And it's unlikely to succeed at all unless you do give it everything you got. So for sure, give it 100% and give it everything you got and go full throttle. But see if you can do that without burning the boats. See if there's a way to do it without burning the boats, which maybe involves first doing it on nights and weekends. Maybe it involves taking vacation or a hiatus or something from work, if that's possible, to pursue it. Finding some way where you can really go all in on it and go for it, but without burning the boats. Because, like I said, I think that ultimately you don't need to burn the boats to give something 100%. And I think that you ultimately, like me, can get stuck in that thing that you actually don't want to do once you see what it's like to do it full time and do it as a business or whatever the full throttle version looks like. But then it's hard to go back, and you get stuck in it. You start to resent the thing you used to love. What happened with me and movies? Yeah, so I'd say definitely go all in and give 100%, but see if you can do it without burning the boats. See what happens, and go for it. And don't be so conquistador about it. It doesn't have to be so brutal where you burn the boats and let's go conquer the land or die. Get rich or die trying. It doesn't have to be that extreme. You can give 100%, but still have the way back or the way forward in a different way.